Did you just see that? And we're live.
Hey, good evening, Hub Nation. I'm sorry we had a little technical difficulty there, but welcome to another episode of 5 Elements of Success Player Development Series. I'm Roger Nick. I'm your host. I think I don't know if it's are we live or not live, but
Yeah,
anyway,
we are good.
Yeah, all right. Good.
Say hi to Mike for me.
Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate the confidence. Anyway, that's part of the show tonight. So we're talking about some confidence. But anyway, as always, we want to make sure this is interactive. Please send in your questions, comments, concerns to 5elements at thegolfperformancecenter.com. We want to hear from you so we can make this show better, like this intro today. So anyway, we want to hear from you as soon as you have good comments, good concerns for us to address on this show. So thanks so much. As always, I want to welcome in my co-host, Tyler Campbell, Director of Performance at Golf Performance Center. He's on my right tonight because I'm actually facing him tonight. Also, Dennis Silman, Director of Coaching at the Golf Performance Center. He's on my left. Welcome, Dennis, to the show. Also, Dr. Josh Brant, Doctor of Psychology here at Golf Performance Center. Doctor, welcome to the show. Looking forward to hearing from you this evening about our great topic. And we also have special guest on, Rick Dowling, Customer Success Manager at the Hub. Look forward, Rick, to hearing from you tonight on what's going on in the junior golf landscape as it deals with pressure in college landscape. So thanks so much, guys, for being on the show again tonight. Again, let's talk about this topic tonight. We got under pressure, junior athletes and performance and expectations. So we're going to be talking about that tonight. But before we get into tonight's show, let's talk about last week's show, Tyler. Can you get it together?
We had a great show. Actually, we didn't have a show last week, but 2 weeks ago we had the Hub guys. Rick was with us, and we talked all things college scholarships. Big major takeaways from that show. There's really 4 ways to earn a college scholarship. We know that there's merit-based college scholarships that are available through academics. There's financial aid that's available based on each family's financial situation. There are third-party scholarships that are available, like our Hub Cup opportunities. Excuse me.
It's all right. We'll get through it. Don't.
Last but not least,
keep going. We got you.
There are the athletic scholarships that are available, which are obviously.
Here comes a life vest. Here's a life vest. Here we go.
Front of mind for all of us. Junior athletes. All right. Back to you, Roger.
All right. Oh, hey, thanks, Tyler.
We got a case of the giggles.
You got to love live TV.
Hey,
right?
That's okay. That's great. I think that means we're all a little nervous on the show tonight, probably.
I was a little distracted on the show tonight. I apologize.
Yeah.
I'm sure the intro was a little. The intro was a little rocky coming back into earth there. So as I'm on location here in sunny Orlando, Florida, where the sun is hot. Just like the sun atmosphere is just burning, scorching my feet, and you guys are in that snow there back in.
It is still snowy up here for sure.
Yeah, but anyway, hey, so before we go any further, because of that rocky entry back into the atmosphere, I forgot about the pop quiz tonight. So the pop quiz tonight is: what is the best way to manage adolescent pressures and performance expectations? I read that earlier as the topic of the show. I want to say I apologize for that. So let me rephrase. Let me say that one more time. What is the best way to manage adolescent pressures and performance expectations? That is a question. So please, guys, answer that question. Send it in. Let's draw your name out of the hat. We got a great prize tonight, which is a dozen Pro V balls for those who are traveling to Florida with our group this week. You may need these. Hopefully, you're not like Tyler Campbell, lose all 12 of them in the first 3 holes. Those are nice possessions. So, but anyway, so sorry about that little fumble there earlier on the pop quiz, giving that away. Again, this week we are talking about under pressure, junior athletes, and performance expectations. That's what we're talking about. We got great guests here to talk about this. Dr. Brant and Dennis, we're going to throw it right to you. Here we are in the throes of getting ready for our season. You got college looming for some of these young athletes out there on the globe. They're all over the place. They're pressures in schools, different things, different pressures out there. Dr. Brant, talk about what you see with these young athletes today.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about the topic, Roger, I was thinking about a couple of things, right? I think there are general pressures that adolescents face, just everyone does. I think there's also some pretty unique things that student athletes face for pressure, but I also think when you have a global pandemic, that's going to amplify all of those things. So I think right now, as we talk about kind of what the particular sources of pressure for adolescent student athletes, we also have to add in that idea of COVID and how that's impacting in general. So I think we're going to get a chance to talk to Rick Dowling from the Hub too, to really get his sense about how has COVID really impacted the college recruitment process as well, and he's going to give us some ideas about how to navigate that. But just to begin with, I think it's really important to look at some of those common sources of pressure for adolescents and the student athlete. And you can look up on the screen, you can see, we're talking about peer pressure, we talk about academic pressure, we talk about parental pressure. There's really, I think it's pretty unique to adolescents right now, this idea of social media and what impact that has on kids is pretty profound. And then general uncertainty. It's not unusual for adolescents to start thinking about, what does their future look like? What are you going to be when you grow up? And particularly now, given that the college landscape has changed so much as a result of the pandemic, I think the adolescent uncertainty is even more. So, when we talk peer pressure, we're talking about, what directly are we experiencing from our peer group? Just trying to really work on our identities is an important part of adolescence, and looking around, trying on different personas. You can have direct peer pressure, the classic thing about alcohol or drinking, or indirect pressure, from everything from what I'm wearing to what car am I driving, what school am I going to go to. There's a lot more academic pressure now these days as well, especially for affluent families, right? So it's not just this is where I think it's unique to the student athlete. There's not just that pressure to achieve within the sport, but there's also the pressure to achieve academically as well. And probably one of the things that I think is most influential in terms of pressure is parental pressure, right? Parents, especially within the affluent community, have pretty high expectations for their kids. And it can really get in the way of kind of their development, their thinking, and lead to a lot of added stress. Social media, really profound, right? If you go on any social media platform, what's being expected of us socially, whether it's achievement, fame, body image, wealth, there's a lot of expectation there to be a certain way. And then I've also addressed the uncertainty of the future too, but all these things really real for kids these days.
Yeah, Dr. Brant, I think that's wonderful, and that's a great start to this conversation. And let's not leave out also, as you talk about affluent parents, but let's talk about the inclusivity of everyone in golf who's trying to play golf. And we have, as you know, a lot of ties to a lot of communities out there when it comes to tournaments and playing and competitive events. And not all of them actually are from that affluent communities. So again, you're looking at different pressures for those kids as well as, hey, what do I do? Or is it worth it for me? And I think, again, maybe there is lower expectations in some way, but it's not really. I mean, so those are real too. So let's not leave out the idea that, because you're not affluent, you don't have those same pressures. So, but that's really real for these young people, and I think it's really real for the adults that are dealing with that. And that Dennis is going to come to you. So talking about that, and you're having to deal with the junior golf athlete, and you're having to deal with the parent. We know that can be a sticky situation because, again, talking about development and what needs to happen in totality, as we call our 5 elements of success, which is again a big part of why we're doing what we're doing. I think it's so far outside the norm when it comes to what parents know of golf development, right? They think developing a golf swing is developing the person. Let's talk about what special things that you guys do at GPC to handle the total person.
Yeah, I think, we always start the year with making sure they write down their why so they can tap into their true intrinsic motivation, actually document it in writing, and something they can refer back to if they feel like they're losing that connection to their true motivation. We also have them write down their goals. And so we've taken a lot of time going through that this winter, as we've discussed on past episodes. So, obviously Dr. Brant's talking about a lot of different pressures here that can interfere with that motivation, that desire. It may be there, but it may get dampened at times with these external pressures. And so a lot of what we do is make sure we understand where the athlete is, what kind of headspace are they in. Because if they're not in a good headspace, with their desire and their engagement in the process, then not a lot of good things are going to happen. Not a lot of enjoyment of the game. And so we're really always just trying to kind of weed out all the interference, all these pressures. So there's a lot of processes we use. We have dialogue with the parents. It's so important to understand, or for them to understand their role in this whole process, which is really just unconditional support. And we think when that happens, that they can tap into that motivation better.
Yeah, and I think that goes, as we know, and maybe more people are starting to find out. I mean, we talk about our player development index, we talk about our player development system and a systematic approach, and I think one of the things that we've developed this for is helping those parents and those players understand kind of where they are in that journey, a snapshot where they are to kind of help them, really, to be able to really guide them with some level of certainty of, hey, this is where you are. Here's what we're seeing in the landscape of the college players. Here's what you need to do to kind of help you, get better. And I think, Rick, pre-show, we were just talking about this, and you said the best thing that you can do is know your subject, right? I mean, basically, the more you feel prepared for something, the less pressure and anxiety you're going to feel about what's happening. And I'll let you talk more about that later. But one of the things I thought was really interesting is we started the show, kind of that was intentional kind of fumble there, right? Because we are nervous starting the show, we laugh. How important is it, Tyler, to have kids, feel in their culture, laugh and having some fun and, getting some exercise. And I think that's so important for them to kind of help release that anxiety and some of these pressures, correct?
No, you're absolutely right. And obviously we were having a lot of fun there at the beginning of the show, but this is a pretty serious topic for, a lot of adolescents. And physically, we know that exercise is one of the first things that we can do to fend off some of that stress and some of those pressures that you might be feeling. But yet how quickly exercise is the first thing to go, or takes a back seat to all these other activities that are just adding pressure, So one thing that we do, uniquely, I think, with Ethan Allen preparatory students is they all get a physical workout in to start their day. So as crazy as it sounds for some of the high school kids who are tuning in, at 7 a.m. every morning, we have a group of 20 high school athletes, going through a dynamic warm-up, going through a planned out strength training program to get the blood flowing, to get the mind ready to take on the day, to release some of the energy and some of the stresses that come with just being an adolescent student athlete. And so, I think it's something to reflect on, that if you have given or put, physical exercise or training, as in a backseat, or if you've not done it, formally before, I really encourage you to give it a shot and start slow, just try a little bit at a time, 15, 20 minutes, to just get the juices flowing and get the blood moving a little bit. And you're going to feel a physiological change as a result of a release of some of those hormones, as we were talking about before the show, Dr. Brant. And it's just really, it's a critical balance that you have the opportunity to control. And, again, too often it gets kind of pushed to the side.
Yeah. We hear so often, that these kids are so overbooked with activities in the activity itself. Regardless of whether it's one that they like to do or not, it's just another part of their workload of the day, which again just creates stress when they don't have a release mechanism. And even we hear kids playing sports, but it's on this kind of turnstile of playing sports, right? It's like, okay, let's put it on let's check it off the box for the resume. Let coaches or let schools know that they're playing extracurricular, and the kid may not have any interest in it. He might want to play golf versus hockey or golf versus baseball, whatever it may be. And so, Rick, let's go there. And I know you are fielding a lot of calls from the junior golf hub space. with the uncertainty with college recruiting process, with COVID and things being on hold a little bit. What are you hearing, and how are you helping families deal with this?
Yeah, before we get to I'll try to answer that question for you, Roger, because it definitely comes up a lot, and more so in the last 12 months to 18 months. But I'm glad we're talking about this topic because I'm here sitting in this stool, and I'm 27 years old, and I have different pressures than I did when I was in high school. But I definitely felt like no one's perfect. It's normal to feel these things. It's almost unavoidable, and I think it's really important that if you're watching this, parents and kids, that you try to learn as much as you can about this, because it's going to happen. So that's my first thought when we got together about this topic. I'm just so happy we're talking about it. But in terms of the future and the pressure that surrounds the college process, it's almost like all these things we talk about culminate into one superhuman, and then that's like the one big pressure. Because it combines your academic resume, it combines what your friends are doing, it combines what you do on the golf course, what your friends are shooting, and it's very tough. I think it's one of the biggest pressures. But the good news is it's kind of why we do what we do at the Junior Golf Hub. We like to give you a platform or a forum where you can take 15 minutes a day, maybe an hour a week, to kind of get plugged in about the things that are going to contribute to your plan and setting you up for success when it comes time to make a college decision.
Rick, I think that's well said and well spoken. And I think that's one of the things that, Dennis, I know you're dealing with, we've dealt with a lot of parents and talking about this whole process and the anxiousness of just getting this out of the way. How often do we hear, you know what, I just want to make a decision so I can get this out of the way. So it is a real thing. And I think it's, you hear kids in the recruiting process say that, once they don't get recruited, or maybe they, didn't get recruited from the school that they really liked, it's their unworthiness. They feel really bad about themselves as well, and they let the parents down and they let themselves down. So talk a little bit about how you handle that with the parents and the athlete.
Yeah, I think the hub has been a tremendous support at just kind of laying out a roadmap and a timeline, and what it might look like. We have a lot of data from the past on what kind of improvement process we can see, or what kind of improvement rate we can see, maybe 4 or 5% year over year. So they have to understand the reality of where they are and what it looks like to get to where they're going to be and what that timeline is going to be like. I think Rick said it really well a couple weeks ago at the end of the episode. I mean, you really should come back to your intrinsic motivation and kind of back to what you were saying before about preparation. I kind of call it like the preparation expectation scale. When preparation is low and expectations are high, I think you're probably going to feel a lot of anxiety out there because you kind of know that you're not really prepared to play where you expect to play. If you can flip that, I think that's where you get the kind of the best performance when you're really prepared and you can kind of temper the expectations, if you will, like that.
Yeah, and I think that's also, Dennis, one of the things we've talked a lot about is that skill challenge ratio, and really what is that gap between that, and I think that preparedness and obviously the challenge there as well. But I'm going to throw this to Dr. Brant, but this is maybe the emotional intelligence that's missing, right? I mean, these kids don't really understand that maybe they're not prepared. They don't know if they're prepared or not, especially from the mental standpoint. Not forget about the physical for a moment, but the physical challenge or mental challenges they're facing today are just, again, talked about the resources of those pressures. That's out there. What are we doing, and how would you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a complicated picture. I think the first thing is that when we look at just something as fundamental as an adolescent's neurology, the part of their brain that is required to kind of manage all of these expectations isn't fully developed yet. We know that the prefrontal cortex, the part of that adolescent part of the brain that is responsible for kind of all those classic executive functionings like organization, planning, time management, impulse control, all the ways to kind of sort information, that doesn't get fully developed until your mid-20s to late 20s. So just
Dr. Brant.
Yeah.
Yeah, on that subject, while you're hitting that nail on the head there, and I think it's really important to kind of emphasize. So, and Dennis and Tyler and Rick, you've seen these at junior events. So when we see juniors and their parents carrying their bags, scheduling their tournaments, doing yardages, cleaning their clubs, all the things that you just talked about from the executive functioning standpoint of organizing and dealing with that time management. And when these kids are not doing this, this is a real issue. This is leading up to some of these other bigger issues that we see of the expectation factors, correct?
Installing their growth.
Yeah. I go ahead. I'll follow up, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's critical. I mean, they have to learn, we love the book, The Gift of Failure, we've talked about. They have to learn to become resourceful. They may not make the yardage book right the first time or they may mess up signing up for the tournament the first time, but they'll learn, right? And I think it's so important, for their future to learn to be resourceful in that way.
I think it could be, in a sense, and if I'm going to call mom and dad out for a second, there's a bit of a double standard. You want to do everything for the athlete. You want to set them up for success, but that's not giving them the opportunity to actually have success. You're not giving them the opportunity to really own it and say, hey, I've been through this myself. I know how to prepare for this, with the yardage books and what equipment do I need, and even just preparing mentally and the night before the tournament. What do I need to be putting in my body? What type of food should I be eating? Like I as the athlete have ownership over that and know that. And if that's constantly given to me, I don't have to do any work. I'm just relying on mom and dad to do it all for me. And then but yet I'm getting held to a standard that's applying pressure. So it's like, I'm just being torn like this as a junior athlete. And I think it's frustrating from a coach's standpoint. But I think the athletes feeling that frustration at times too. So,
and parents aren't even seeing that, right? I mean, the thing to your point, Tyler,
right.
parents maybe not even,
exactly.
Seeing that they don't realize that they're doing that. And sometimes it's so subliminal in their body language, in their actions. They may not say it. They may say, "Oh, I'm totally supportive," but their actions are speaking louder than the words.
Totally. Yeah, and just as a tangent to that, something that's really important to know, even though that the brain structures aren't fully developed, it's actually executive functioning skills can be taught. Right. So the more you do give a child the opportunity, a student, depending on whatever age, it doesn't matter, by giving them that experience to manage those expectations, you're actually training them to develop those neural pathways sooner than they would otherwise. So, right, that could be as simple as life management, or even I could see that being of benefit to course management, right? When we talk about golf. Like better understanding how to evaluate information and put it to good use. Those are skills that transfer beyond just being able to manage one's life. So yeah, I agree. Allowing a child to do that is a great way to help them practice that skill.
Yeah, and taking that ability away from them to develop a process really does hinder their overall and maybe long-term development, if you will, and whether it's mental, physical, cognitive, all of those things that go along with being a healthy, active adult is definitely hindered by that. So Dennis, talking, we talked last week a little bit about, the art of the impossible. Stephen Kotler had written a book, Rise of Superman. He wrote this book, and they talk in there about that process and what that is. Obviously, you're very familiar with the Rise of Superman, and I think it's a great book. What can the kids, or is that something that you would prescribe to the juniors to read or parents to read?
Well, that's a great timely question. I can't speak to it as well as you, but I put it in my backpack, and it's coming to Florida with us for our trip. So I could probably give you a better answer in a couple of weeks. But I have read Rise of Superman from Stephen Kotler, and that was an incredible read, fascinating book. So I imagine this one's going to be great. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm about halfway through it, Roger. So it's I couldn't recommend it more. It really is a great a partner with the Rise of Superman. It really kind of lays out things more clearly about how to go about developing kind of greatness. So highly recommend it.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the things that we see, the expectations laid on these junior athletes, student athletes, if you will. And for that matter, even adults, right? You're trying to be great in business and whatever it is you may be doing. There is a process there. Obviously the desire, ultimately, wanting to be better. setting the right goals, and then obviously following that with hard work and process of, continuum, if you will, of that. So I think that's really important. Rick, I'm going to go back to you because, again, this is we know that a lot of kids on the Junior Golf Hub have aspirations of playing college golf. We know that it's a little messy out there and the uncertainty. Can you talk a little bit more about how you guys are helping from the Hub perspective these student athletes and family again?
Yeah, we could say that the college golf landscape has changed the most it has ever changed in a year time period than in its history in the wake of the pandemic. Coaches are probably under a lot of pressure too, feeling the uncertainty of the effects that are still happening today. The Ivy League just canceled its spring sports this past week, so who knows what will happen next. But what has stayed constant is the things that the family must do to set themselves up for success. And Junior Golf Hub is designed particularly for junior golfers and their families to get the tools and education they need to execute on their game plan. So that's the one thing we've been trying to maintain and improve throughout this process, making sure that our families are getting value from our app and the platform. Getting in there each day, cultivating their 5 elements of success, getting plugged into the college golf landscape, becoming experts themselves.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think maybe we've probably beaten this one to death. The college checklist, right? I mean, I think Dr. Brant said it I think quite well regarding that. It is the frontal cortex. It is the executive functioning at its best, right? It's organizing. It's help organize the parents and juniors to get this stuff done. So even those who may be weak in that area, it actually acts as a guide and provides a lot of great information for them to be able to do this, this process, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Like, Dennis and the kids are going down to Florida, and I know some people don't like to use GPS as much as others here, but if I was going out on that trip, if I was going on that trip, I didn't have my phone.
Me out, Rick? I think you're calling me out.
Well, you're different too, Roger. You don't care. You just drive, and I'll figure it out. But if I didn't have my phone, I'd be like really anxious and feel a lot of pressure. I got 20 kids in my car. I need my GPS. I need my phone, my Google Maps. That's what the college golf checklist is for the junior golf family. It's going to keep you in check, make sure you're comfortable, you know what's next, you know what you've accomplished leading into those steps, into that process.
Rick,
I like that.
Yeah, I love that. And that leads us, I think, to some strategies to manage some of these student athlete pressures. And there's a few in particular that I know we were talking about before the show that relate very closely to that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when we talk about just athlete pressure, I would say adolescent pressure, probably one of the best things I would say for the pop quiz, right? You want to know the best way to manage pressure in general is social support. Really lean on those people around you. Make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people that are supportive of you. Make sure your parents are supporting you. It's one of the best ways to alleviate stress and pressure throughout any process. Whether you're just kind of struggling in general through adolescence or whether you're trying to navigate the college landscape, like leaning on people. And I think, again, I know I'm very biased, but the Hub is such an amazing way to take advantage of kind of this the social research into what works and what doesn't work. So it's a great way.
I would just elaborate on that, and the way that I interpret that as not a clinical psychologist, but a strength coach, is to say, hey, people have been through things before as well, and relying on those relationships that you have in your life to, for that support and for that feedback to say, hey, Dennis, have you been feeling what I'm feeling right now? What did you feel when you went through the college process? Can you help me? Relying on those relationships for that support is critical, and just not being afraid to ask, because I guarantee you those around you have experienced something like that, in their time, or at least can get you somebody who has. So.
Yeah, for sure. And it kind of leans into the second one too, which is be in communication, right? Again, whether you're just dealing with the normal trials and tribulations of adolescence, make sure you're asking for help. Let people know when you're struggling. Be in communication. Make sure you're talking. And again, that you take that same idea all the way through the college process as well. Being a student athlete can be really, really challenging and difficult, and kind of holding on to that struggle within yourself can unfortunately have pretty dire consequences. I mean, right now, especially, right, we're seeing with the pandemic, the mental health numbers or the mental illness numbers, forgive me, are off the charts. Depression, anxiety, teenage suicide. I mean, these things are really skyrocketing right now. So as hard as it is to be in communication when you're feeling that way, really important to be in communication about what's going on.
And maybe a little tip there, as you just talked about, I think that's great, Dr. Brant, is when you see your kid maybe isolating themselves, or I know as coaches, we start looking at that, and they isolate themselves away from the group, or, those are maybe telltale signs for parents, or they don't want to participate in certain things. Hey, ask, press some questions there and just kind of, get to the bottom of it. Because I think there's going to be a lot of adolescents that aren't going to know how to communicate that, or know how to communicate properly their real feelings. And Dr. Brand, that's really more up your alley. But I think just from anecdotal, us starting to see, isolation is maybe a telltale sign of something that's going on.
Yeah, and isolation, irritability sometimes shows up for teenagers, which is not always in adults. So isolation, irritability, hopelessness, kind of the classic loss of interest in things that normally bring interest to that person. So be on the lookout. And I'm also one of these people where I always err on the side of caution. So if I'm noticing that within a friend or my child, right, make sure to ask. Right, I've unfortunately heard stories about family situations where they didn't ask. They knew something was wrong and didn't ask. So really important to err on the side of caution, especially now when everybody is struggling. So yes, I totally agree. Really important to reach out. I'm going to go to the last two, right? So this is kind of a little bit of a shift. Something, this is just these last two are really good ways just to deal with pressure, anxiety, stress, right? The more you can organize, the more you can plan, the more you can manage your time, the more you'll feel in control over your environment, the more you'll feel in control over yourself. Great strategies, always good things to do to help alleviate pressure. And then acceptance, right? And when I say acceptance, I mean really start to recognize the things that you can be in control of and be accepting of those things that you can't. Great advice in general, I think, in terms of alleviating pressure and stress. Not surprising, that works wonderfully well on the golf course too, right? Control what you can and accept what you can't. Very cool.
Yeah, that's great advice and great strategies there. And I think, Dennis, I know as players and as a player, we were talking to Nota Begay last week. He was going through his PDI assessment, which was actually quite interesting to watch and understand the pressure that he was feeling as a professional athlete. One of the highest level players out there going through a simple assessment was feeling the pressure. But he was talking about the things he can control and couldn't control. And I think you had a quote attached tonight that actually says a lot.
Yeah, from Lydia Ko recently. You want me to read the quote?
Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, all I can do is try my 100%. Have a lot of fun out there. Whatever happens, happens, Ko said. I think that's a big goal of mine this year. And it was kind of the case the end of the year last year as well. Just doing the best in what I can control. And what I can control are the things having 100% commitment over a shot before taking the shot, or preparing myself well before an event. If things go well and results follow, that's great. But I think I just got to accept the things that are coming my way. I think it's a much healthier, happier mindset to be playing at.
Wow. And I would say,
what a good quote that is.
And obviously easier said than done, but I think it's worth striving for. I think it's a really important way to approach life, and I think it's also a great coping strategy to deal with pressure.
Don't you think it's funny that you sent an email a while back and asking the coaches here about Rory sounded a lot like that?
Yeah.
And isn't it interesting that you had a young lady who was probably had a lot of pressure on her to perform. She's was the best in her age group. Rory was arguably the same.
Yeah.
That both of them are speaking the same way now.
Right.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And this was
Yeah.
this was in response to feeling the pressure of being number one as a teenager.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, being
Again, that to
being
me
very
is-
successful.
Yeah, feeling very prepared, knowing that I've prepared my best. And again, think that can kind of diminish the expectations when you know you've already done your best. You've already succeeded, really, when you tee off.
That's right.
Yeah,
Very good.
I mean, getting those lead factors in to create those lag factors, right, or lag results, right? I mean, that's really important.
Yeah.
And Roger, I just included this website really as a resource. If anybody out there is really struggling, the mentalhealth.gov is a really good resource just to tap into, just for anybody who really needs to get more information about kind of how to approach any mental health issue that they're wrestling with. Good for parents too as well.
That's great. Thanks, Dr. Brant, and thank you guys on this topic. I know it's a tough one, but it's a one that's near and dear to us, and helping young people learn and develop. Again, just our overarching mission is making a positive impact on humanity through the game of golf, and I think that's this hopefully is a start for some of those parents to hear this, and some of those players also. So again, thanks for your input on this subject matter tonight. Andrew, do we have any questions this evening for us?
We do. The first is, what's the best way to breathe?
What's the best way to breathe? I'll take that one if you guys want.
I'm listening because at the beginning of the show, I needed the answer.
You need to breathe.
Hey, Tyler, you were trying to breathe through your eyelids. I don't know if that works so well.
Yeah, so there's a great line I heard from a yoga instructor once, is that the mind follows the breath, right? So really how we breathe is how we will think. So if there's a couple of theories out there, but breathing in a way that you are relaxed, right, as you will when you're relaxed, will induce relaxation. Breathing in a way that you do when you're anxious will induce anxiety, right? So right. So really important. The basic idea is the longer the exhale, right, the more you will tap into kind of this rest, relax state, and then the longer the inhale, the more you can tap into kind of this stress state. So when we breathe stressfully, right, when we want to induce a stress state, short, choppy, kind of out of sync breathing is what we do. Right, I always like to think of like a squirrel, like who almost got hit by a car. How would you breathe? Right, you'd be short and choppy, and but if you want to induce like relaxation, you would breathe slow, smooth, and rhythmic. And there's a lot of research out there on this right now. I encourage people to go check it out. But that's basically, it depends on what state you want to induce. I would say obviously the one that I think is more consistent with playing effective golf would probably be being in that like slow, smooth, rhythmic state. That also can help just reduce an anxiety attack as well, by the way. But so I think it depends on what you want. But if you want to induce anxiety, quick, fast, choppy. But if you want to relax, slow that breathing down, make it smooth and rhythmic.
I want to just add, I think that's a great practice drill as well. If you're working on your putting and you want to learn how to deal with that anxiety, do exactly what you said, short, choppy breaths, and then do the opposite and see what it feels like. I think you'll probably induce some interesting results.
The next question is, what tools would you recommend for a junior golfer when they encounter tense or difficult situations between a parent and another golfer that might be in their foursome during an event, and that junior golfer might be caddying for themselves?
I think that's a great question. Dennis, you got that one?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think ideally, just stay out of it if possible. I think, just kind of stay in your lane and do your thing. I think if there's really interfering with your ability to do that and you feel like you have to say something, then, I think it's difficult for a junior golfer to say something, but I think really I would call an official over really and take that route if you feel like something needs to be done.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really important to assess how it's impacting you. Right, here you are in a tournament, you're trying to perform at your best, and if that particular situation is impacting you in a negative way, Again, I can imagine it's really difficult for an adolescent to handle that. So I agree. I would call over an official and let them know what's going on.
Yeah, great.
We have, and we do have a pop quiz winner. It's Mia
All right.
Robustelli.
Oh, great.
Mia Robustelli, all right. Way to go. Yes, sir. All right. Well, yes, ma'am. Yep. Nice. Won the Pro V balls. That's great. Fantastic, Mia, for entering that answer in. So thanks so much. And thanks for tuning in, watching the show. And the show wouldn't be possible without our sponsors, the Junior Golf Hub. Make sure you're downloading that app. Get those coaches in your pocket. Take that 10 minutes to do the self-assessment, the PDI self-assessment. Find out where you are in your journey. Look for coming schedule of our coach-guided PDI assessments. And as always, you can reach out to the Golf Performance Center or the Junior Golf Hub. Set up your full PDI assessment, find out and get some answers to maybe why you're not reaching your ultimate goal. So anyway, thanks again for the Junior Golf Hub being a sponsor. Ethan Allen Preparatory, achieving your greatness in the classroom, on the golf course, and in life. We couldn't have done it without you guys. So thanks so much for being our sponsors. Guys, thanks again tonight. Great topic, and look forward to discussing more. And again, Dr. Brant, if you would take us out with the organization there again, the website they could go to for some assistance.
Yeah, mentalhealth.gov. Amazing resource. Anything you want. Immediate, if you needed an immediate crisis center and just in general information, great resource. Mentalhealth.gov.
Awesome. All right, guys, enjoy your journey. Get after it. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great week.